Hello,
Okay.
everyone, and welcome to Tapcaf Transmissions, the only Star Wars podcast that has such a high concentration of Canadian content that the CBC is allowed to air us. I am your host, as usual, Corey. Joining me, as usual, is my co-host Justin EckhartsLadder. How are you doing, Justin?
Doing great. Got some big news, guys. But we'll get to that in a minute.
All right, and bringing up the Canadian content, we have our other Canadian friend joining us all the way from Kings and Generals on the history side of YouTube. Return guest for third appearance. I don't know, beating
I
out
think it's
Alex and
three.
Mark. We
Yeah.
have Ilkin. How are you doing tonight, Ilkin?
I was doing well until I realized that we have a Sith among us.
A
A
Sith.
Sith?
Yeah,
A Sith
did you know
Lord?
that? I
No.
don't know if he's a lord. He looks more like an apprentice, to be honest.
Oh, that's one of us
But
is going to be
yeah,
insulted by
uh,
this.
he, yeah, he said that he loves darkness. So immediately my alarm clocks went off,
Okay.
and I don't know if we can start the podcast. To be honest,
Do we have special guests Lomi, Plo, and Welk here or something?
no, I
Yeah.
think it's you, Corey. Can you admit that you said that? It's in our conversation. I can share the screen.
I think you're just. I think you're just reading too much into my lighting being bad in my studio thing, and I I did say that darkness helps me sleep. And I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's a pretty universal thing. I think if you even go look at episode 2 or 3, when Yoda's talking to Anakin, dark room. Even Yoda likes it.
Exactly, episode 3. You are dealing in absolutes. You are saying that darkness helps you sleep, which is.
I only sleep in VR chat.
In meta, you have legs, right?
Metaverse.
Yeah, the metaverse. I search on Facebook, comfy bed on the Facebook marketplace, and then I, against other people's wishes, sleep in their beds that are for sale in VR. And it's not weird.
I can only sleep if it's low poly.
Yeah, exactly.
In video game, right?
All right,
But
so
my big news. So
Okay.
I'm still playing Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I did pay money when I started to buy the fleet pack, the
so
big
you're
pack.
locked in.
I'm locked in, right?
Sunk cost
There's
fallacy.
no such thing as a sunk cost. But I'm locked in. I haven't been spending money since, but I'm in such a good guild that I got number 1 in my fleet shard, which is a big deal. Like it's every day you get ranked in your shard for it's like a competitive thing, and there's like 10,000 people, I think, and I was number 1.
How did you get into a good guild? Did they realize that it's you?
Yes, yeah, I got Arnold, who's like the biggest streamer, to get me in his not the main guild, because to be in that guild I'm in the feeder guild for his main guild, and it's still sick. It's unreal.
So you're
Yeah.
basically in the AHL. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in the AHL. I'm like a fourth line grinder, but I'm still getting my AHL paycheck.
When the revolution comes to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, Ek, you will be first on the guillotine, star fucking your way into the top ranks.
I've got the Malevolence, the Subjugator. Nobody else has it. That's like the one you could only get from being in a really good guild, because you use your guild tokens to buy it. Everyone else is using Star Destroyers and stuff. I got the Subjugator. Fucking game over, boys.
That doesn't that just makes me not want to play that game.
But I'm beating somebody who spent probably the guy who's number 1. Usually he's got ships that I am probably 3 years away from having, 2 years away from having. The guy must have spent 6 figures, and I beat his ass for free. So
All right, well, that's great.
Yeah, we've also seen the example of a nepotism in Star Wars coming into. So,
that's true.
We're getting a nice preview of seeing Sov staffing apparently the entire Defense Department with just Celestians everywhere, I guess.
Yep.
Sov gets a bad rap in this book, but this book that we're going to be talking about today is Star by Star by Troy Denning. It kind of changes the tone of the expanded universe for the rest of its run, but before we get to that, any other Star Wars news we want to cover?
Well, I want to get Ilkin's quick thoughts on Andor. Maybe I'd say no spoilers for the most recent episode, but just quick thoughts, Ilkin.
So here are my thoughts. I love my wife dearly, but the fact that she's not allowing me to watch it without her is really killing the mood in the house. So I haven't watched any of it yet. I'm really sorry about that. I know.
Oh, you haven't watched any of it?
Yeah, fake Star Wars fan. I don't
Fuck.
know. I'm the one who shipped Rey and Kylo. I'm the bad guy here. So yeah, but I was the first to ship them basically. So it's on me.
You were the first to ship them.
Well, I assume.
2018.
I think if we just look through everyone's Twitter records, we can probably prove that that's not true.
Yeah, but you are not going to do that. So yeah, regardless, I haven't watched any. I'm really sorry about that. So if you guys want to talk about it, so
No,
go ahead.
Great guess, great
We'll
stuff.
have,
No,
we'll have a
good.
full episode about it next week. We'll be talking about Andor episode 6 and 7. We really should have planned that out better, so we'd be doing each arc by arc. We didn't do it that way. Everyone
that's
can
true.
get over it. Well, we didn't know when we set up the schedule that it would be like 3 episode sets.
Is it true that it's the best Star Wars show ever?
I think so.
There's
Justin
a good
still
argument.
thinks
Yeah.
Mando is better.
Well, I think to me, they both hit completely different things, completely different parts of my brain.
Okay,
So
sure, you can compare apples and oranges, but I still like oranges better than apples. Get the fuck over it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair, but I like apples and oranges, and I can't choose which one I like more. Some people can, I can't,
Yeah,
and that's true.
I'm trying
Like
to say that in a
oranges, and
tone.
bananas, I'll put bananas a little lower, but
I'm trying to say it in a tone that'll lure you into your Twitter state of mind for all the arguments you've gotten into it this week.
all right, I want to get into that real quick.
Quick question, just to set the mood. Is it correct that Mandalorian is heavier on Star Wars and Andor is like you can set it up anywhere in any universe and it will be still good?
There's more aliens in Mandalorian, I think, is what that comes down to.
Okay, less human supremacists. Okay, but in terms of like its Star Warsiness, what I read on Twitter at least, it's like less Star Wars than Mandalorian, mostly because of the whole no Easter eggs debacle.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Mando season 1 didn't really have that many Easter eggs. Like some episodes did, like the Jawa episode did, where they where he gets the egg. But I mean, like I think that could have been like just like how Mando season 1 could have been a Western, Andor could have been a spy. But like Andor needs to have a big like imperial enemy to work. I mean, I guess you could have it like against the British or against whoever, but I don't know. I would hesitate to say that it's, not
Well,
Star Wars.
The Queen dies, and you are now against British, eh? Immediately,
I called the Queen a Nazi.
Yeah,
one
we have
episode.
that.
We got
I
Our
was
worst
there,
review.
actually.
Yeah.
Were you there for that one? Okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
Was that while he was on it? I don't think so. That was on
I think
Brilliant
I think
Trilogy.
I'm a bad influence on you guys in general, or maybe you or me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like we make each other worse.
So, I mean, I think the Easter egg thing is a bit overblown because, like, Andor has off and on a ton of Easter eggs. I think the most recent episode didn't have much in it, but I think the tone of the show is still very Star Wars. I think the universe is still like it's. You could take Andor and set it somewhere else with the main story beats, but I think that's going to be true of any reasonable story. Like Justin was saying, you could do that with the Mandalorian as well, with just like the Western situation of it. No one would be thinking, "Oh, that's a Baby Yoda" if it was in some other thing, but
yeah,
you'd have to set up why the aging is weird a bit more.
I'm going to ask what would be the real world counterpart of Baby Yoda, but that might lead to some racism. So let's not.
I think
do
it's
that.
Benjamin. Like people were okay with Benjamin Button, and I guess like the aging situation there would look similar.
I wasn't okay with that. It was very creepy.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, don't speak for us on Benjamin Button. For me, like Andor has a lot of the things about Star Wars. Like one thing I really like about Andor that the original Star Wars does so well is like having really lively sets and having these fun environments that are alien enough to be different. Like walking down a street in a normal movie is not always super interesting, but in Andor it is because there's all these uniquely Star Wars things.
I feel like it was the case for Rogue One too.
Yeah,
especially when you compare like Rogue One and like prequel trilogy. Rogue One was much more grounded, and I'm not even talking about the topic or the atmosphere, but more of a like cinematic. It was more grounded and dirty, you know.
Right.
Yeah, no, totally. I think honestly, if you imagine Rogue One without the Death Star, it's a pretty good comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, I want to talk about this little thing because it has been bothering me, and I've been talking about it a lot, and Ilkin alluded to it. So there's an individual on Twitter. I'm not going to say their name because I don't really know who they are, and I don't have anything against them. They tweeted out something pretty innocuous, saying that Andor makes all other Star Wars shows look bad. Or not actually, no, they didn't say that. They said Andor is dunking on all other Star Wars shows, which I don't really have a problem with that comment. What I had a problem with is my friend Kyle Katarn, who's a really nice guy. He's a Star Wars reactor, and you can find him on YouTube. He said, I get you're excited about the show, but like, shut the fuck up. Like, you don't need to always be comparing one to another, which I also think is fair. My problem is this guy who got, 1,000 people agreeing, like 3,000, 4,000 people agreeing with him, all positive comments, took this one comment from my friend Kyle.
And to clarify, Kyle didn't actually say "shut the fuck up."
I think he might have actually said,
did he?
"Shut the fuck up."
Okay,
yeah.
Then it is a bit more aggressive than I thought.
Yeah, totally. I'm not really going to defend what Kyle said because I don't agree with that. But anyway, he took that one comment and made it seem like there was this huge backlash against what he said. It's like, it's been two people, just relax. It's not a big deal. And like I commented, like, are we living in a world where Mando doesn't exist? And he like fucking immediately responded. So it's like, just my general advice. And I've had to take this myself sometimes. When you have something, a take that goes really viral or that a lot of people agree with, if you have 10,000 people seeing your post, and if you have 3,000 likes, it's more like 100,000. There's going to be a few that disagree with you. Just move on. Fucking take a breather.
Yeah, don't talk about it on your podcast the next week.
This interesting thing happened like a few days ago. Like, it's not interesting, but it's like very similar. Someone on Reddit had a comment saying that thumbs up emoji kind of triggers them.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and basically like big, mostly right-wing media immediately like Gen Z cancelled hostile thumbs up emoji. And I'm like,
I saw that, yeah.
Dude, it's just one comment on one thread on Reddit.
Oh,
like,
that drives me fucking crazy. I've seen that too.
Like,
well, it's like the thing with the angry feminist or whatever. Like, her face gets used on every right-wing grifter video for the last 4 years. You watch the video, she just has an expressive face. She's not even as angry as the dude that she's shutting down. Yeah. But that's been 6 years of like the griftiest posts made out of that one person.
Yeah, I saw, I forget who did a video on that, but it was basically like pointing out that there's a whole, it's like, that's like what Fox News will basically do. There'll be like something that's pretty, standard or like pretty normal. And then they'll find one fucking comment. And anytime there's, 10,000 comments on something, there's always going to be one person that says something that's crazy. And then you just say people are saying, or Gen Z is saying, or liberals are saying. It's just like, come on.
Well, when I was in university, what I would usually do if I couldn't find a way to support an argument in a paper is I would go to my roommate and I'd say, like, hey, can you say this? Get them to repeat it back to me. And then I could say in my paper, some people say, and then it becomes a valid point.
So again, your dark influence can be seen in everything that's happening in the world. So
yes,
yeah, because the one, I am a Sith. Yes,
you are the one behind the process. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Should we move on then to Star by Star and technically Recovery?
Yeah. I'll admit I didn't really read Recovery, but yeah.
Did you read Recovery, Ilkin? Because
at some point, like 10 years ago, but I didn't know that we are going to discuss it too.
So we're technically not. We actually did get an email about this where I'm not sure if it's in the paper version of the book as well, but my ebook, and I think Justin's as well, presents the short story Recovery as a prologue to the book. It is technically a short story that's not like directly tied to the plot going on here. And the email we got from Felicia was asking where it takes place, because actually it's set 2 books before Star by Star. It's set before the Edge of Victory duology, and after Balance Point gets about the immediate aftermath of Duro. And then Elysia is kind of in a similar situation with Destiny's Way, but Elysia is actually set in the middle of Destiny's Way. So it's less of a problem for that. But yeah, so there's a 100-page short story that I read. I guess you guys didn't.
I read about
that
half of.
We don't really need to talk about it too much. It's basically just the introduction of Sabbath Sebatine and the Wild Knights. Sabbath's not really in it that much, but it kind of shows how they got to the Jedi Order. Sabbath's a big character for the rest of the EU's run, but just they were off in Hutt space being trained by a former student of Luke, and that's kind of the important part for it.
I was thinking that Saba was introduced when Barab was being taken by the Vong. Maybe that's in a different book.
Yeah, that's later on.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it's later when Barab is.
Maybe that's because the last time I read New Jedi Order, it was the audiobooks, and Saba probably wasn't even in this fucking book in the audiobook version.
So, yeah, we did get another email saying the audiobook version was way too short. I've never listened to the audiobook version.
Yeah, I have.
Assume you have, and it's.
So you guys are more versed in this. You guys have better contacts. Is there a reason they don't release like longer versions of the audiobooks?
Yeah, so the reason is honestly because when these came out, they were on cassette, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 3 hours was probably two sides of a cassette tape. And they just haven't got around to re-recording them. That's kind of what they're doing now with some of the Star Wars Legends books, like the X-Wing series, the first 4 books they've now done full unabridged audiobooks for. You can actually, find I'm dying in this fucked up country ass town. You can find ones they did for blind people. They don't have the same special effects or sound. Fuck. I got a fucking thud bug in my throat. But yeah, I don't know why they haven't done it more aggressively.
Okay, now that Corey stopped using force choke on you.
Thanks. Jesus.
Well, apparently I use force choke on my bitrate as well, because I think the stream dropped the entire time you were coughing there.
Oh, good.
So no one missed anything.
Okay.
Depending on how they like Egg, they might be missing something. But, yeah.
But I think they've said they're going to be trying to release pretty much all of the older books in the like larger print format, so the same kind of form factor that's being done for the Essential Legends collection. I don't know if that means they'll also be doing more of the audiobooks.
I didn't see that.
But I think all of the audiobooks, or rather all the Essential Legends collection, have had unabridged audiobooks done for them, right? Or is it just a few of them like the X-Wing ones?
Yeah, most of them, I believe, yeah. Yeah. I didn't know they committed to doing that many books, though, because I remember Matt Martin was asked about it, and he was like, well, if we do all of them, it's not going to be essential, is it?
It's not that they're doing all of them in the Essential Legends collection. Like the information I got from it was, I asked whether when they do them, they're going to be, like, does it have to be the whole series that gets done if something's viable?
Right.
And because like, could we get Trader as part of the Essential Legends collection without getting the whole NJO?
Right.
And I got the kind of passive aggressive response, though that did mention that.
All right, that was probably from Del Rey editor Joe, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But he hates you because of the whole sardonic thing.
Probably.
I think the guy's just whatever.
Okay, let's keep our early access, please. I don't have one. I wish to get one, so let's.
Oh, he's got nothing to do with that. So
okay, so whatever. Jokes aside, do you think there are plans to like release the Legends as a more coherent storyline? I guess like a one long timeline of books, more edited down.
I don't think any editing. I think it's just like new editions of existing books that are more likely.
Okay.
So like the next print run of each book is probably going to involve, or not next print run, but like the future of those printed books. The next edition is probably going to involve the same form factor that the Essential Legends collection has, even if not necessarily the art style of Essential Legends collection or even necessarily new art. They haven't said anything about what the plans there would be. But it seems like every Legends book will at least come in that size. which isn't really a huge breaking news situation, but it's something.
Yeah.
I'll buy most of them, I guess. They look cool.
They do look nice. I don't like the covers as much, but let's talk about the book. So, Corey, this was your first time reading this and rereading this in how long?
Like
A
6
year
months.
or so? 6 months? Okay. What about you, Ilkin?
So our listeners don't know that, but you guys actually changed the date on me 3 times. So this
Was it
is
really
like
that many times?
this is the third time I have been reading it in the last 3 months. So thank you, Corey.
That,
I don't know
it's
why.
not my fault.
I don't know why you wanted me to hate this one, but okay.
Well,
Now
the other times that I gave you dates, I did say they were tentative, and they were at least several weeks away. So I don't know why you were reading it that far in advance. The last date I did give you was the 6th or 7th. I don't know why you'd need to reread it since then.
I'm dumb. I'm very dumb. I need to read it every whole. So yeah, book. You are correct that the tone changes completely, and I feel like I have read somewhere that it was deliberate idea to make it as dark as possible. And the events in this one kind of drive the events of the future, like 50 million books afterwards. So I guess there was at this point already some kind of understanding that what will happen with Jason, etc.
Yeah, I don't know if Jason's fate was necessarily set, and I don't know that they necessarily 100% decided that Jason would be a Sith before Betrayal, or before Legacy of the Force, because Jason was originally supposed to die until this happened, but I don't know when they decided that Anakin would die instead, whether Jason would go dark side, because there's definitely the retcon of like Vergier was not originally supposed to be a Sith, but I don't think you can make the argument that she wasn't doing a lot of really fucked up shit to Jason. So there was at least some kind of exploration of that must have been planned. Like, you can't go through what Jason does in this and in Traitor without some kind of lasting effects. But originally he was just supposed to be some like Force mystic off doing his own weird stuff on his own, and then that turned into him being like, no, he's going dark side now.
Yeah, Jaina seems much more likely to go dark side in this one.
Is it this one or the next one where she basically becomes like a great Jedi? At least is the word.
Well, in this one, she's like force shocking some Vong at the very end.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. True.
Like,
yeah.
We do have Dark
even
Journey.
Kind of like, why are you doing that?
I mean, Dark Journey is pretty explicit on like Jaina's dark side right now, but she gets better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing some love with older men won't fix.
Yeah. The NJO is full of just weird Jaina romances. Like, Jag is the only one that's close to reasonable, and it's not the best, but at least it's normal. But then you have like Kip, and the worst of them is Isolder in Dark Journey, where we'll get to that next time, I think. But
I love it. I love the line. Basically, I couldn't marry your mother, so I'm going to marry you. And like, okay,
it's like that's like Twilight. Remember? Do you guys ever watch those movies?
The wolf.
He like imprints on the kid.
Yeah.
I had dated a girl, and that was her comfort movie. I must have watched times.
Okay, now I'm uncomfortable with dating entirely.
Well,
but I guess I'll give a quick synopsis of what happens in the book. It's a very long book, but it's probably easy to summarize as
very long.
The Vong have turned the Voxen, which I've complained about Talon Card's part in, or turned the Vornsker into a Jedi hunting monster called the Voxen that they're breeding over Mercure. It took a lot of Jedi resources to figure out that the Voxen would be made over Mercure, but so there's a Jedi strike team that includes all the Solo kids, all their friends from Young Jedi Knights, going to hunt them down over Mercure. They end up losing Anakin in that, along with a bunch of other characters that are basically red shirts set up for the adventure. But
including Raynar Thul's new gal after he lost Lusa the same novel.
We'll get there. Don't worry. We'll get to Lusa.
Fuck, man.
Most of the conversation is going to be
I don't even know if
Lusa,
we got to see any boobs before he died. It was kind of ambiguous.
Well,
right?
he has seen some bug stuff, I guess, later, so that's
Yeah,
fine.
I don't think if you're going to live with the Killicks, I don't think there's any risk that he wasn't
No, but I mean
incredibly
in this,
sexually active before dying.
yeah, but that's when he's all burned up and stuff. Like,
Okay, well, that's rude. But on the other
okay,
side of the
that is rude. I'm
galaxy, this
sorry.
is where Coruscant gets taken by the Yuzon Vong in a pretty brutal battle where they
Yeah,
throw a bunch of refugee ships at the shields in order to break the shields open.
and this is also, it feels like where the Yuuzhan Vong lose, because this entire book, they're accomplishing technically their strategic objectives, but they're taking so many losses that
Yeah.
like they lose an entire fleet at the battle of the, is it the what is it, the
Is that Black
Bantha?
Bantha Nebula that they're at for
Black
that? Or
Bantha.
is
Yeah,
it the
they lose like an entire massive fleet of like, I think
Mhm.
they say like 1,000 ships or something
Yeah.
at the at that battle. And then they lose a lot at Coruscant. Like that's, it seems like it's most of their ships at Coruscant, and the New Republic is retreating, but like it seems like they're killing like 10 ships for every one they lose, because the Vong are just throwing themselves against the shield. They're throwing themselves against the, like they've got when they're attacking Coruscant, they've got these guns like on the top of the towers, and they're shooting down like thousands of drop ships. And then at the very end, Borsk Faliot takes out 25,000 Yuuzhan Vong warriors.
Yeah.
So
Like
Good for him. He does one good thing in his life.
yeah, I thought it was okay, this book, but yeah.
So yeah, there was like a caricature moment at the end where Han and Leia are talking to him, or is it Han or Leia or when he's talking to Luke? But either way, they're talking about how Coruscant's going to fall, and he says that can't be allowed to happen. If Coruscant falls, then my government falls.
Yeah, that's
And I felt like that
Leia.
was a bit too much of a like. I felt like that was a bit caricature-y rather than how he would.
It is,
really
but at the same
think.
time, it shows what New Republic has become in a way. Like its roots from the Rebel Alliance, where they had to change the base like every 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and now they're basically like, okay, this is my, I'm going to say Moscow, and if it burns, it burns, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, and in the very next book, I feel like we start seeing the Republic returning to its roots, and that's where it starts winning again, more or less.
Yeah, it's kind of tough, because I actually thought that for most of this book, Falia was pretty reasonable and fairly conciliatory, I guess. Where it's really a lot of the other people in the government, including Vicky Shesh, who's like obviously double agent, who are kind of fucking people over. It's just like he can't, like he seems to want to help the Jedi. Now, obviously, some of that is from political motivations, but like he does at the end even seem regretful that Anakin died. So
I have some. So it's a bit weird for me the way some of it gets laid out, where Borsk is presented as doing a lot of the right thing here, but it's also made entirely clear that like Borsk, even though he's being the reasonable one in the Senate right now, is only doing it because of the political gain rather than because he thinks he's doing the right thing for the right reasons. And the extent to which Star by Star in particular goes to kind of nail that home rather than presenting it as people are scared and they're not willing to do the right thing, or there are some corrupt senators in the Senate. Like, there's a really big condemnation of almost the entire system. And the way that Troy Denning writes in particular, it almost always reads as like authoritarianism apologia, where in order to do the right thing, it has to be these strong leaders that are going against any kind of democratic institutions. And you can say, oh, well, the New Republic Senate was corrupt at this point. But someone wrote the New Republic Senate as being that corrupt. And someone wrote those like strongman leaders as coming to take the reins and doing what they're presenting as the right thing, and how any kind of conciliatory action or any kind of action that would have been
it's because like even Leia's losing faith. Like Leia refuses to go and deal with the Senate at all. Like she won't even talk to the Senate by the end of the book.
Yeah.
So you're right.
If we're talking about the tendencies of Troy Denning, I'm just trying to put it as politically correct as possible. Do you feel like his Jedi portrayal is a bit of a I guess, superhero?
Definitely a bit. I mean, like we get that from both Jaina and Anakin in this, where they both have like their, and that's actually something I noticed. One of the weaknesses of this book, in my opinion, is the quality of the Vong. Even it's interesting because the Voxen are a great example. Where at the beginning of the book, a single Voxen is like a fucking massive deal, kills 2 Jedi, like it's in gruesome ways, and by the end, individual Jedi are gunning down multiple of them. Same with the Vong. You have individual Jedi killing 30 Vong just with
Yeah.
blasters.
Yeah.
When like in the
The
first
book,
novel,
Luke can't kill one immediately. He takes like minutes of like dueling, etc., etc. Not
exactly.
Luke, sorry, Mara, obviously not Luke.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a bit weird. I think having the all out action works in some cases, and I think even Anakin going on a sort of last stand, unifying force type of thing, or one with the force type of thing is fine, but there was a bit too much of that, and I think that ends up leaving the book a little bloated too. Like I don't think this book needed to be 600 pages. 400 or 450 I can see, but I think they probably could have cut down on some of the action a little bit and made it a bit more readable. By they I mean Troy Denning and his editors.
In general, what I felt reading the book is it's like the closest Star Wars book set is to a video game.
I was actually thinking that the whole time, how this felt a lot like Halo at a lot of points, especially the end where there's it's always a dropship's coming in, dropping them off, and I was like, this feels like Halo to me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the closest it's been to a video game because we have I think Darth Bane or the Bane novels are just so KOTOR-y. But I definitely agree with the sentiment there, where a lot of the Mercure stuff ends up being
it's like semi-repetitive
action of you're going through High Charity and
it's a lot like
there.
Yeah, it's a lot like the Halo novel, The Flood, but that book I think is well, it's not better, but the action is written better. Because I did find myself I'm not saying I didn't enjoy this book either. I really enjoyed this book, but the length was an issue, and I did find myself for the action scenes kind of just like surface reading some of them. You know what I mean? Because there's so many of them on Mercure. So
I think the biggest thing. So I largely enjoy how a lot of the relationships were handled through the Mercure mission. I thought the emotional impact on all the characters was really good. But not really good, obviously it was incredibly negative, but I thought it was handled really well. And the one kind of takeaway from that for me is there's a very clear kind of main character situation that's visible in universe when Troy Denning is writing. So it's not just that there are those characters being better at everything. It's that those characters are inherently more valuable, and it's showing in how the valuable to the people there, and it's showing in how they're reacting to the injuries and deaths that are happening in the strike team, where the way that Tesser is reacting to the deaths of Bella and Krasov is still taking a backseat to Tesser compared to how he's reacting to Anakin being injured.
Yeah.
And it's it's fitting into, I think, what you were saying with the superhero, or alluding to with the superhero stuff.
Well, you know what I mean, right?
Yes.
It's the entire idea of I don't want to use the word fascism, but you kind of alluded with the whole Republic situation. So the idea that one man, in this case, Anakin can solve every issue, basically, more or less. Obviously, he dies, but even his death basically turns the tide of the war, more or less.
I don't have as much of a problem with it being such a narrative turning point. It's just if there wasn't like if the reactions of the characters to the events was a bit more balanced to what their perspective really would have been, then that would that would have probably been enough for me. But like I can understand Jason and Jaina's reaction being framed that way. I can understand
Mhm.
uh like Panel Kaw's reaction being that way. But like Tessar can get a bit of a pass for like him and Saba. Their reactions get portrayed as less intense than
Spooky
Luke's
lizards.
because they're spooky lizards. But
Hmm.
then you have Tessar also reacting to Anakin a kind of similar way. So that kind of detracts from how his handling is with Bella and Krasov. But then you also have like the stuff with Errol. Not Errol. I think that's her name.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's kind of interesting because the book starts off with what's her name? Alima Rar,
Dilemma,
and
yeah.
she's not a main character yet, although she's Troy Denning's favorite. I actually really like the scene between her and her sister,
Mhm.
where her sister it's very brutal. Like she's trying to save her sister, and I think it's the spit is like going through her hands and stuff like that. Very brutal start to the book, as this book kind of is overall. But you're right, and then it kind of I think it loses some of that, and it is a bit of a shame too because I thought he wrote when Troy Denning handled, for example, like I'm thinking, I mean, we just read Young Jedi Knights, so they're the ones I'm thinking of the most. Like I thought he did a good job with the characters. Like he has Tenel Ka. Is like a point where Tenel Ka is telling a joke to Jason, and
Mhm.
it's like kind of exactly what like it would have been in those books, where Jason's like, "You're not supposed to tell jokes. That's my thing," and she's kind of bad at it. Um, but then on other occasions, it's just kind of lost to Anakin has had 10 stab wounds and has got sleeking, and yeah.
Do you think it's like a tone problem that it's uneven?
I I I don't know. I honestly think that the mission. I think my main problem is the idea of a suicide mission that you have to send the kids off to do is compelling, especially where there are these kids that, especially in Jason and Jaina and Anakin's case, we love after all these books. I think that's kind of compelling, but I think the actual mission itself falls a little bit flat. Where like logically, I don't think it necessarily makes sense, and I just think it is too much going through this kind of nondescript Yuuzhan Vong thing for it to really kind of work.
Have kind of have a problem with Anakin's, I guess, earning it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, before this one, we more or less ignore Anakin. He has a
Except in
moment.
Corellian trilogy.
Yeah, he has a moment with Mara on was it Datamir? His early
When they're on
his
Dantooine?
Yeah, on Dantooine, sorry, on Dantooine. And the message there is basically that sometimes you need to let go and not
Yeah.
like use force. Sometimes you need to work with magic, etc., etc. And that's a good message. That's an interesting message. But this one kind of goes a completely different direction, in my opinion.
So
Yeah.
in execution, I agree with you, but I think in planning, it was probably a bit more clear, especially when they decided uh the fate swap between Jason and Anakin. Like, I think initially it was probably going to be a situation where Jason dies, and that really puts the halt on how Anakin handles things rashly and recklessly, and then he can
Mhm.
go on to be a calmer leader of the Jedi Order in the future, and everyone's happily living. But when they decided that Anakin would die, it was probably meant to be a situation, and I can see how it would work this way in the storyboarding of like, okay, they go on this mission, Anakin's still kind of struggling with those elements, and it's like Jason and Jaina even kind of say it afterwards that it's Anakin's recklessness, Anakin's need to do everything himself to prove himself that costs him, and even some of the dialogue with Jaina saying like, if you don't go and rest, you're going to get more of us killed because we're going to have to protect you. And I think there's elements of it that still come through, but the way that Denning portrays it is that ultimately when Anakin's doing these things, he's doing the right thing. So it undermines the lessons that Mara was trying to teach him earlier.
Okay. I also don't feel like for using previous relationships between Jason and Anakin, that Jason would allow Anakin to be the leader of the group.
I don't know that
Like,
he felt he had a choice.
I never didn't really honestly get that myself. Like, for me, the obvious leader is Ganner. Now that there's kind of the whole fake out thing there, but I didn't get, like, there was nothing really in Anakin's past. I mean, I guess he's shown himself to be a good warrior. He saves Mara on, is that Ithor? He saves her.
Dantooine.
Yeah, that was all
And
still Dantooine.
I think
was it?
Anakin
Okay.
just is there. Like, most of his actions on Dantooine. I don't remember him doing anything else in other books.
He does. I think part of it is because he understands the Vong more from, because like Edge of Victory is so much about Anakin and Tahiri and how they're the two that go and spend that time with the Vong. He has the lambent crystals, so I think it's
Yeah.
kind of coming from that. But I don't think that's quite enough to justify him fully leading the mission. For sure, like Ganner and Jaina are probably both better choices for that.
Yeah, and it's just like I have trouble buying into the whole, like, for one, the whole the cloning thing doesn't really make sense to me. Like, well, why can't you just clone a clone? I guess, but whatever. That's, Star Wars has that rule. Sometimes you can't clone a clone, so that's whatever. But like, it just feels weird that there was no better way to get to this planet than the highly risky plan. But I mean, I guess that's also Star Wars. It's just that kind of, when the whole book is about this mission, and I'm not sure about the logic of it, especially with Anakin being the leader. Yeah.
Like, don't you guys think that at least one Master Jedi would be joining the team?
I think the way they laid out the justifications for that worked well enough for the story. Like, they're not going to think that the higher level Jedi are falling for the trap they're setting, and it's going to cause them to be more cautious.
Yeah, that's fair.
Those that won't even know what a Master Jedi is at this point. Maybe they do.
I think it's just like they know Ganner's kind of a hothead. He's the oldest, most experienced one they can get away with, because like Ganner's relatively well known even to them. But as soon as you have like a smarter adult with them, the Vong might get a bit more suspicious.
Classic Ganner. Yeah, I couldn't remember why they were all kids. Like what the rationale. I was thinking that it had something to do with them sneaking this through storage lockers or something.
Yeah,
but they're not that young. Like, Jason's got to be man-sized, so yeah, it's got nothing to do with that.
I don't have that much of a.
It's a setup, like, to be able to use the young Jedi books to, like, basically to springboard into that. And for me, the logic of allowing them to go is not there still. I don't know. Maybe I'm being anti-Troidening. I don't know.
Yeah.
What I don't get is why it was so hard for them to figure out it would be Makir. Like, it's Vornskar based, and then it takes like 100 pages of them fucking analyzing what it was eating to realize that they're over the planet that Vornskar are from.
Which, isn't that how they did it? Didn't they do something like that in the Thrawn trilogy as well?
The metallic contents?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I couldn't remember if that was defined. Yeah. Maybe that was defined Wayland, though.
So does he explain why the Wong are allowed to call them Wong, or is it like a...
I guess we should no, screw the Vong. They can be the Vong. It's fine.
Vong,
it's fine.
And then in brackets derogatory.
Exactly. So why is that actually a derogatory? I don't remember.
They explained it in the last book, I think.
I think it's something about like you're separating them from the gods.
No, 2 books ago. The Shamed One explains it to Anakin.
Right, yeah. I don't know.
It's like if the name of our species was like godly humans, then people just called us humans, and people were like, "Oh, you can't do that." I think that's what it is.
That's how I became shamed, or better known as atheist. So, do they explain why the Wong can't replicate the process? Because from the later books, we see that they kind of have this codexes, I guess, of bioengineering. And like whatever is written there is forever. So I'm not sure if it's explained why they can't replicate the process and create Voxen again.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether maybe like they wiped out all the Vornsker on Merkur or something when they long formed it, other than the ones that were off planet. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's weird because like they get sent them by Vicky, and then they
Vicky,
go
yeah.
to the planet that it's on, and then for whatever reason, once that one's dead, they just can't do it again. I do kind of wonder if this was part of like Shimra making Nen Yim or his like personal band of shapers do things, because there's no way this was in the cortexes itself.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's like a potentially interesting subplot there that we didn't get, rather than the 100-page search for Mercure. Because I really just do like Nen Yim as well as a character.
Yeah.
He's like one of the few really good Vaughn characters.
Yeah.
And we could have had that instead of the weird fucking subplot with Savong Law wanting to have sex with his attendant, and then so
Not wanting to, having to.
well, yeah, but
because Vong Dingaling.
because Troy Denning just needs to make everything as horny as possible. So
There were 2 moments like that in this book. Sorry.
yeah,
More than 2. There were like 4.
So basically, every time Sif gets mentioned, it's just basically about how attractive she is, and then it ends with her seeing Savong Law naked, which means that she either needs to die or they need to breed. And rather than killing her, Savong Law decides they're going to make babies, and then she gets
to my quarters, wench.
really attached to him as well. Like, you need to survive to raise our baby together.
I was going to say that I operate like that. If I send someone a dick pic, they have to have sex with me, but
oh no,
I can't say that. So moral question after what I said, moral question right on time. So if you are a Jedi before the Vong War, do you feel like you have to destroy the Vonsker?
For the Vong War?
Oh, yeah. Like if you go back, it's like the Hitler question. Like, do you shoot baby Hitler?
Not a Hitler question, but like there were so many problems they created during the Traun trilogy. Don't you feel like somebody like Kip Durin, let's say, might justify killing them, destroying them completely?
Yeah, I think so.
I think someone would try it. I don't think they'd be right to.
Okay. I like Isalamine more, anyway. So, fuck monster.
I mean,
well,
it's basically
the natural hunters of.
Do we have a right to commit a genocide because we have these special powers and we can be hunted by this one particular thing? Like, I don't think they have. I don't think most of the Jedi would see it as them having that right. I think the Voxen, it's just because they are bred as weapons to specifically hunt them down rather than they have the capability of doing it.
I guess I'm getting very utilitarian right now, but if you feel like you are doing enough good in the galaxy, maybe destroying
I'd do it.
Okay.
I'd do it. Yeah, I'd do it.
I think if someone's doing what the Vong are doing to the Vornsker, then you have like hunting down the Vong are fair game, but not as an organization, not every individual in it. But I don't think you just preemptively go and nuke the Vornsker. Maybe you take some
I do it 10
precautions to defend Mercure. Maybe you don't have fucking Talon Card blab his dumbass mouth to everyone and then make the galaxy be doomed to whatever's going on now.
I think Corey is hiding his power level better than Justin.
For me, if I gotta kill all the dogs in Canada to save my nephew, I'd do it in a minute. A minute, yeah. If I gotta snap my finger, I'd do it for sure.
Okay, but what if you don't have to snap your finger? What if you gotta go around the country with a machete, a light machete? If we're keeping the
I don't have time for that. But if you can put them all in one,
make it fun for him.
If you can put them all in one room and I can turn on the big guillotine, I'd do that.
Well, okay, so it's the trolley problem of all the puppers versus one nephew.
Yeah, I don't value animals as much as humans.
I can see it. I can see it. I guess.
I understand why some wouldn't, but for me,
look, I guess I can't keep eating meat.
Is it fair for them?
Charlie in chat saying Rip Murphy.
Oh, it had a heartbeat. Are you serious? He's right here too.
I did want to finish off the Sif and Savong Law thing. So when Sif sees him naked, it's because Shimra's calling, and at the end of the call with Shimra,
it's like when Charlie sends me Snapchat to him pissing. and I accidentally show it to Murphy.
Shimra comments on how it's kind of sus that you left her alive, but don't worry, I'm down with it. And he basically it implies that Shimra just like drops all his clothes at that point too. It's like Savon thinks he was invited to look, but not to comment. So it doesn't say it explicitly, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened, and I'm not sure why.
I thought it was just him looking upon him in general.
No, because he says see and be seen. And it's not just like we're going to sit here on FaceTime quietly for a moment for some reason. He's definitely like angling that down a little bit.
I don't know. I got to reread that now. Be a little more excited to reread Star by Star. There were a couple of horny moments in this book. There's every time the kids like when they're always being described as like hardly wearing clothes. Like when they're in the Vong ship, they're like it specifically says they're hardly wearing clothes. And then there's the scene with Raynar where everyone gets kind of like romantic with each other, which from what I've heard is kind of a realistic, and you go through trauma or whatever.
Situation.
What's that?
Reaction to a dangerous situation.
Yeah, for sure. And Raynar wakes up. He's like, I think I just kissed that girl last night. And then he looks over and she's like topless, and he's looking at her back, and she's all scarred. And she kind of like looks back, and she's like, Are you looking at me? I don't remember exactly what she says, but
and like half of them are like 16, 17 years old, which is okay.
And then there's another moment. Sorry, there's another moment where Han makes a comment about like I forget who Anakin's sitting next to, but he's like Anakin wasn't quite as familiar in ways as she was or something. And then there's kind of a joke about how Jane is not either because she's been too busy in Rogue Squadron the whole time.
I guess any Star Wars book that has star in it has to be horny.
Yeah.
Get Lost Stars, we get Star by Star. It's Troy Denning or Star, and if you have both, then it's just going all the way.
You're
the
fucked,
start lined up.
Exactly.
I get a bit annoyed with Mara in the NJO, especially some of these later books, because she gets reduced to like I don't have as much problem with like the Mara illness arc, but I've mentioned it before, where she kind of gets left out of important Jedi meetings, and now all she cares about is basically Ben. She's either commenting on Ben or commenting on having sex with Luke, even if they're in the middle of combat, where like she's anything Luke tries to say, and it's like not like last night. Meanwhile, they have another person in their little mind meld thing.
Yeah, they
can hear everything.
And basically, this jealousy leads to her death later on, right?
I don't know if the horniness is why Jason kills her.
No, not horniness. Jealousy. I think she's actually going after what sort of face?
Lumaya,
and actually Jason's there, something like that.
That's kind of what happens. Yeah, because it's like they were like interfacing, and he's like Luke was thinking about when they were interfacing last night.
Yeah.
There's another guy in the chat. like this is like it's like you accidentally like try to sext your like significant other and you do it in the family group chat.
I guess if I want to piss off my parents more, I'm going to do it. But
yeah,
Luke sensed an uncommon moment of embarrassment in his wife as Mare's mind flashed from the cognitive union they were experiencing to a more physical kind, and he found himself sharing in her hope that nobody else was picking up on the connection. Meanwhile, Tam absolutely was.
I just, for me, I always find that so unbelievable because, like, Mara's presented as, like, this vixen, this beautiful, redhead, strong woman, and Luke is, like, fucking Luke. He's, like, kind of a wiener in a way. Like, I just don't believe that 45-year-old Luke is really that much of a fucking...
Listen, that reminds me, I want to rant, like, for 5 seconds, because my rants are usually shorter than Justin's. I hate whatever happens in any Star Wars TV show, whatever happens in any Star Wars book. The moment something happens, doesn't matter what it is, someone somewhere will publish an article saying that they are bringing Mara Jade back. And it completely blows my head how stupid it is. Like, can you guys just leave it be for 5 seconds? Just there will be no Mara. That's it. We're done with that. I don't know.
It
Yeah.
depends what you define as Mara as well. Like, is it just redhead who works for the
They are
Emperor?
doing it with everything. So
Yeah.
if there's a redhead character, if there's some kind of girlfriend or wife of Luke, or if
Mhm.
there's some female smuggler type character, so it's just basically whatever happens, no matter what, Mara Jade is
Yeah.
returning to Star Wars. So I
I
guess
mean,
that
I could see some situation in which a character in some way similar to Mara comes back, but like, yeah, it's not happened so far. There's been no reason to believe any of the cases where all of these clickbait videos get made. Like, it's ridiculous.
I actually don't know. Maybe one of you guys have made that video, but I'm mostly talking about news articles.
Yeah, it is mostly news articles.
Yeah, it's really like far fetched. Like somebody has like one strand of red hair, or I don't know, somebody has a relative who is smuggler, something like that. Something
And then
really
it's
far
just a
fetched.
Photoshop picture of Scarlett Johansson.
Yes, sure, exactly.
What was I gonna say? Oh, you're right about Mara being reduced though. Her and Leia are basically the same character, just one of them's sad and one of them's angry. Or
One
like
of
feisty.
funny.
That's like Mara's feisty Leia, Leia's sad Mara. That's how I feel about them in this book at least.
Fair enough.
So, question for you guys: what do you think Savon Gla wanted to do with Ben Skywalker?
I mean,
Did he
probably
want
just a
Ben?
standard. Yeah, probably just
Yeah.
a nice standard sacrifice.
He's kind of freaking out because he's got a Charlie style toenail that he's got to get rid of, and it's not going away, and doesn't know what antibiotics are, and thinks he's cursed. Can you imagine that if like every time like you got sick in real life, you're just like, fuck, I'm cursed. Like I gotta go do something sick to make the gods like me again.
Fuck my hand and get the
Yeah.
prothesis. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think like if they were able to get Ben and sacrifice him, then that just completely undermines the Jedi. Where like if they can't protect, like if Luke and Mara can't protect the not yet Grand Master of the Order's child, they can't protect you. So you should all just turn them over
Yeah.
now, and maybe we'll be nice to you. Like
Do you
Honest-
think there was like idea to do the Tahiri situation and brainwash the kid into becoming like a mix of Vong and Jedi?
It's interesting.
Hmm,
Could be.
I don't
That
know.
Bong Rala storyline had been continued.
I don't know how on board Savong Law would be with that, because that seems a little bit on the heretical side. Like when Nen Yim and what's her name were doing that, it was very clearly like
Yeah.
breaking free of what the cortexes were allowing, which is why I kind of think the Voxen probably did that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that Savong Law would. Maybe other shapers, if they came up with it and did it, maybe he wouldn't know enough to say no to it. But I don't think he'd have that idea for himself, or
Yeah.
that'd be a plan that he would do. And
Shimmer would maybe do it, but
yeah, and since this seems to be like, since the stuff with Viki seems to be his operation, I would doubt that's what they're going for. Like I could see someone trying to do that with Jaina and Jason when they get captured before they get sacrificed or something, because it's a thing you can start doing now rather than like, oh, let's intercept Ben and do it like so we have
I kind of felt like it was
Jedi
just
years from now.
Vicky trying to redeem herself. Like did she get direct orders from Savon Log to do that, or was she just kind of off on her own? I can't remember.
She got the Vong escort to go and do it, so I think it has to
Right.
be. They kind of do it again with the Slayers at the end. Those are essentially Vong formed Jedi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I'm reading the what's the name of this book? I keep forgetting the one where Starlight Beacon is destroyed.
Fallen Star.
No.
Fallen Star, yeah. The least horny star book. So I kind of don't like at this point this Star Wars trope of someone changing the size and becoming enemy. It's like I feel like it's happening more often than it should.
Mm-hmm.
and the idea that there's always someone working within government to destabilize it, etc., etc. I feel like Wikishesh might be interesting, but there's so much difference between Wong and humans that it's difficult to think that someone would try to do it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they could have. I mean, we kind of know her rationale. She wants to save Kuwat in a way, but it's a
But
little flimsy.
what we see from the start of the Wong invasion is that uh, there's no loyalty to any
Yeah,
promise, etc. They just do stuff, especially after uh, it was Aitor, right?
Ithar,
Before?
yeah.
Yeah. After that, expecting that they will spare your planet, which
Mhm.
is one of the biggest
Sea
spaceship.
shipyard, yeah.
Yeah, it's I know that's not going to
Yeah.
happen. I don't know.
I think like the way the earlier war handles it is better. Like
Yeah.
this later part of the war has, or I guess the middle, the later part goes back away from it, but this middle part has so much focus on Vicky Shesh as like an active enemy agent. When I think the more interesting plot line or the more interesting message or theme they were exploring of like the members of the Senate who were being inactive because they were afraid rather than
Mhm.
because they were uh, just actively helping the Vong. I thought there was more to explore there that would have been more interesting than just like,
In
ha, here's
general,
your new evil person of the day.
they kind of dropped the whole collaborators thing midway through the series, I guess. Like after Elysia, we don't see the Peace Brigade as much as before.
Mhm.
Again, it's just a feeling. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but
Mhm.
it feels like the whole idea of Jedi hunting, etc. It goes nowhere at some point.
Yeah,
They stop.
I think that kind of stops now where we've kind of trailed off the Peace Brigade a bit, but there's still been mentions
Yeah.
of them. It's just not as interesting.
The
Like Han and
lines are
Leia deal
more
with them a
firm
lot.
here.
Yeah, Han
Yeah.
and Leia deal with them a lot in Edge of Victory. But once Coruscant's done, they've basically taken over the galaxy. So like there no one's it gets way past the point. I agree with you that Ethor should have been the sign there. But once Coruscant's down, once they've controlled everything, it's harder for anyone to say, okay, maybe the
Yeah.
collaboration is better.
Because a lot of it is, well, in this book they talk about how it's the inner, a lot of the core worlds and the inner rim worlds who are trying to kind of do the appeasement thing, but after this point it's kind of clear, like the writing's on the wall.
There is actually in Recovery, there's a bit more about that because they're on Corellia
Mm-hmm.
and you have Thrak and Sal Solo, and Han and Leia
I got to that
mentioned
part. Yeah.
mentioned to the Corellians of like, oh, this person's with the Peace Brigade. Don't you understand they're collaborationists? And the response is like, oh,
Yeah.
we don't discriminate
Politics
against
aren't
people
outlawed.
here for their political affiliations.
Yeah.
So I thought that part of it actually handled it a lot better than how
Yeah.
Vicky Shesh gets handled in this, and it's both by Troy Denning as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. I found
Actually,
his
if I,
writing in this to be a bit thick, Troy Dennings. Um, Usually I don't really have that much problem with it, but I found myself, maybe it was just because of the length of the book, but I found myself just getting lost in pages sometimes where like maybe there was too much action or there was jumping between characters too much, but I was just like I had to reread things sometimes because I was like I remember the part where they're in the they get their disguises when they're inside the Banu Ross or whatever. And I was like, how are they walking by all these Vong? And at one point it mentions they've got the, what are they, hollow somethings?
yeah,
I was like, I didn't even fucking know. Like, I'm lost.
yeah, in general, the description of the whole world ship is really, I guess, it kind of mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
It's really difficult to understand what is happening where and how. Like the world ship is simultaneously a ship and simultaneously it's like a I don't know, they're like nature's
Yeah.
style areas, etc., which is, I guess, part of the Wong entire like society. But at the same time, the ship is really like it's a mess of what's going on. And I I I'm reading the book for the like fifth time now, and each time No, not because of it. I'm joking, obviously. I have been reading Star Wars for like decades now. So this is like fifth or sixth time, and each time I read it, the section with the world ship are the most difficult for me to get through.
Mhm.
They kind of like mush together. They kind of blur together.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was finding that too.
I think Corey mentioned the directions the war was going, and in my opinion, in terms of like wars and the battles, this might be maybe the best Star Wars series.
This book handles the scale of it all very well, I thought.
Yeah,
Where it's like it's kind of just like it's a meat grinder. Like there's not really. I mean, there sort of are tactics. I have a bit of issue with some of the like some of the writing around that as well. But the scale felt good. The stakes felt good. The fall of Coruscant, I think, is like appropriately horrifying. Yeah,
the refugee situation on Coruscant is shown really beautiful. I feel.
Yeah.
yeah,
Again, my problem with this book is mostly the world ship stuff. Everywhere
yeah.
else stuff is actually more coherent and interesting to me. Maybe because I have read it so many times now, I don't
Mhm.
really care about what happens with it. In general, I'm not really connected to Anakin, let's just say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I always felt like the way the conflict between Jason and Anakin was set up from early on, I felt like Jason was the one that's going to sacrifice himself.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So do you mean the war, how it gets handled in here in particular, or do you mean like the series as a whole and how the
Series as
progression
a
of the war?
whole.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't like the conclusion, and I hope that you guys will invite me when you are going to talk about what's the name of that
Is
book?
it Unifying Force or I think Unifying Force is the last
Yeah,
one, right?
Unifying
Yeah.
Force.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I really don't like the conclusion of the series.
Oh, I'll have a lot to say at the end of the book. Don't worry.
Yeah, so
You're more than welcome to join too.
if you guys can invite me to talk
Absolutely.
about
Definitely.
that, I would appreciate it because like I feel like I'm not going to like go deep, but they are they use a cop out there.
I mean, there's a literal planet moving
Yeah,
around.
they use a cop out and then they try to set up a prequel with this planet. I don't know if you guys read that one with Obi-Wan and
Rogue
Anakin.
Planet. Yeah.
Rogue Planet, yeah. I hated it back then, and I still hate it. I feel like it's a really what's the word?
Mhm.
Without being insulting. Basically, it's a cop out, and it's not a good conclusion to the series.
Yeah.
That's why after multiple reads, I feel like the next series. I always forget its name.
Enemy Lines
No. The
or
next,
Dark Nest.
actually, the one after the Dark
Legacy
Knight.
of the Force.
Yeah, Legacy of the Force for me is the best. Is the best Legend series.
Okay.
I can get behind that. I like it too.
Yeah, I feel like the setup there is good. There are problems obviously, but the battles are good. I like how they describe the politics of the Republic, etc., etc. So obviously we'll talk that down the line.
Mm.
But in terms of battles, I really like what they're doing with especially like stuff like Ebag 9. I
Mhm.
feel
Yeah.
it describes how the Wong want to fight. It describes how Akbar wants to fight. It describes both tactics and like psychology of
Yeah.
two groups. And yeah. We're
And
actually planning to do a series on that on the second channel.
That'd be good. I'd watch that. There was more detail about the battle, and even in this than I remembered. It's not all good, but it's
yeah.
I
Yeah,
think overall the progression kind of makes sense.
I think like everywhere up till here and in the Enemy Lines duology, the progression of the war is handled really well. Some of the other later books, it does get more to the point of like we're moving towards that Deus Ex
Yeah.
of Zonama Seacot. So even though I think even through Force Heretic, you have a lot of good description of how the war is going. But by that point, you also know they're looking for Zonama Seacot. So it all kind of I
Yeah.
start to get a bit more invested in the character stories compared to the overall war because there's still a
Mhm.
lot of good stuff to come with like Jason and Vergier and Jaina as well.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think about Vergier at this point?
I
Like,
was going
what's
to
your
say,
sense on how is she planning to betray the Vong? Is she actually with the Vong? What's your sense reading it for like what was your sense when you're reading it for the first time or now and where her mind is?
okay, when I read it first time, I was in my mid-teens, so I was even more stupid than I'm right now. Uh, I was absolutely horrified with what was going on between her and Jason. Now it's less horrifying and more. I don't really understand what she's saying to do.
Hmm.
I think it's
Uh,
clear she's not on the Vong. Sorry.
Yeah.
yeah, she's not on the wrong side, but like, what is she trying to do exactly? Like,
Mhm.
the in the next book we get that virus that might destroy the Wong, and she's like, we can't use it because of the force, blah 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 blah. So, what is the entire philosophy of Virgil? Is she some kind of like neutral force user that now understands both sides of the conflict? Is she a dark side user? And if she is not, then how come her lessons lead Jason to a dark side?
Yeah,
Like,
I see her more as like for me it feels like she's in this. I think it's pretty clear for one. Obviously, she's not actually with the Vong, and I do think she is meant to be a light side Force user, just not a Jedi. Like in this, she tells Jaina not to use the Force lightning, basically, or like she kind of chastises her for letting her use her anger. Um, I think she's got a different philosophy about how to use the Force, and maybe she's dark side without meaning to be, but I don't. I think she's meant to be
okay, so
a twisted good character, maybe.
in Jason's turn to the dark side, we like I remember this because like it's underlined over and over that whatever happened when he was traveling and he was learning new things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how he became dark side user. But I feel like the next series kind of deliberately forget about Virgil, like what she did to him,
Yeah.
etc. And I don't exactly like it because I feel like her influence on Jason should not be like underestimated.
Mm-hmm. No,
Uh,
I agree with that.
and she is the one who drove him to the dark side.
So I think it gets a little bit muddled because the way that it was handled in Legacy of the Force is very different from how it was probably intended to be handled by Stover, and Stover is the one who most clearly lays out who Vergier is. But I think you can make a clear path from what Vergier does to Jason, not Jaken, leading to him becoming a Sith without it necessarily needing to be her intention or her being on the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
Like I I don't think you can defend what she does to him as being a light side user either. Like she very clearly went through a lot and she put Jason through so much where to me I'll have to think about it more reading Trader again because it's been long enough that I don't remember the specifics, but to me it felt more like Vergier was putting Jason through that thinking it was the only way to have any kind of salvation for the Yuzon Vong is to get him to understand what they're doing, why they're doing that, and then have him kind of go back to the New Republic or go back to the Galactic Alliance at that point with that understanding, even if it was at such a personal cost, where he was basically destroyed by the experience. And Vergier, while not necessarily being dark side herself, was willing to make that sacrifice and had to prepare Jason to make that sacrifice. But then it gets kind of recontextualized within Legacy of the Force by just saying, oh no, she actually saw Darth Krayt hanging upside down and now Jason's a Sith Lord. And I think you can keep the path from Jason in this with everything he goes through from losing Anakin and Chewbacca, going through the war and trying to figure out how he can not have that happen again, not have that happen for his daughter. Therefore, he becomes a Sith Lord without it having been Vergier was manipulating him towards that. And I think that would have been a better way for them to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's well said.
Like entire idea of Virgil torturing him, it makes no sense to me still. And I have this friend. I actually have friends. It might be
Hmm.
surprising. I have this friend who is more into spiritual stuff than me, and he's always like, "Yeah, you don't understand that because you are too grounded and you are not like allowing the whole pain leading to salvation, etc., etc.,
Mhm.
etc." Uh, and I still don't understand it.
It's not like pain leading to personal salvation. I was saying it more of like Jason needs to understand the Vong in order to help with getting them to be able to end the war without having to wipe out the Vong. Uh, and the unfortunate requirement of that was Jason getting involved in their society or understanding their society, which was built around pain. Like, I'm trying to understand how Stover would have gone about it with the preset version of the Vong that was there, because that's how he ends up talking about and thinking about a lot of his stories and how he rationalizes the choices of the characters with like Revenge of the Sith, where he can't decide that outer context, but he can figure out how those characters are acting within that context. So I'm not saying it as like it's a spiritual necessity to suffer for some kind of salvation, though a lot of religions probably would say that, and the Vong one does. It's that Jason needed to go through that from Vergier's perspective in order to result in to find a solution for the war that wouldn't involve having to genocide them because they would have been fighting forever. And
That's
Na
the thing.
Manor ends up playing a bit of a role in that because of the Shamerun uprising.
That's the thing for me. Like the end of the series is actually the rejection of Wong ideas, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that they were wrong all along. Wrong were wrong. Yeah. So they were wrong all along. They actually didn't live the way they were supposed to live, etc., etc., etc. So why should Jason even try to understand them? They are living wrong. They are not doing what they're supposed to do.
Well, it's more his understanding of the Force and why the Vong are excluded from it.
Okay,
And
that makes sense to me.
he needs to be able to go through that so he can turn into a floating ball of light and blast Onimi from across the room. Is really what it ends up being, which I agree that it doesn't pay off in the best way, but I think that's ultimately what they try to set up with Traitor. So like if you read Traitor alone, I think the way that it's laid out there makes more sense, even if I don't think Vergier is still justified in what she's doing. Like it's a bit more clear that she's gone off the deep end,
Hmm.
but there's more of a reason. She's basically Kreia, where she
Yeah.
has this philosophy that she's outlined. She's not
In the
correct
famous
about it.
YouTube video.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you fall asleep, then Vergier comes and auto plays, and you go
But
to the
like
dark side.
compare Virgil's action in the I don't remember the name of the book, but the ones that when where they're on Mont Calamari and they are doing election thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I can't
Destiny's
remember which one
Way
that is. Yeah.
with
So
Senator
yes,
Sneak Away and Scramble Free.
yeah. So basically, the one where Lando steals the election. Thank you.
Yeah, and that gets portrayed as a good thing.
Yeah, go, I don't know what's going on. So in that, her actions are completely like um, different from what she has been preaching before.
Hmm.
Again, maybe I'm reading too much into that. Maybe she just after spending so much time with Wong, she kind of understands them and she kind of wants to save them.
I think part of the problem is that every author had a different idea of what
Yeah,
Vergier was doing, and I think Stover's is the clearest and the one that makes the most sense of like how to handle the character, not necessarily that his version of Vergier was the most correct. And other authors tried to pick that up and run with it in ways that were different from each other as well. And it ends up with Vergier being a very weird character.
yeah. I still don't understand what Virgil is like. If anyone asks me, I will not be able to give them like a
I
one
think part
sentence.
of it you see when it does come to the which is it the red virus what's it called again, the
Alpha
red
Blue with Alpha, or
alpha blue, yeah, or no, that's
Oh,
the
Alpha Blue
COVID
was the
40,
thing.
that's the suit.
COVID 40K. Let's go with that.
Yeah. So I do think you see a little bit of what she's preaching there, where like she's kind of like, don't fucking do this. Like, I think maybe if Jason is to understand the Vong, maybe it's so not because they're worthy of understanding, but just so you kind of understand why you don't want to genocide all of them, with something like that massive virus. You know what I mean?
The thing is, the war more or less ends with the Republican victory.
Yeah.
So without Luke going to Coruscant, without Luke fighting Salon Light, etc., the war doesn't end. So I feel like obviously the remaining won't surrender, right? But
Mhm.
again, I'm going into the unifying force, and I don't want to do that because it's like entire different kind of step for me. I feel like there was little understanding between the authors of where they want to go with it. So despite the fact that Xenomorph Accord appears, despite the fact that it becomes clear that Wong was living wrong, they don't change their mind until they are defeated militarily.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I'm not saying that there's like necessarily anything that redeems with their actions. I'm just saying maybe the point is like you lose more by genociding all of them. Like maybe that's what.
you
Like,
you were ready to kill all of the puppies. So what's the
yeah.
problem?
So I think
I'm
part
not
of it
saying
is
I
that
agree.
they didn't end up like they won a military victory, but they also gave the Vong. They showed the Vong another way, and the other way was stupid because it was we flew a planet here, now sit on it. But
Mhm.
without Zonamas Seacott and without the Shamed One revolts and everything, I don't think the Shamed Ones and Nash Choka and them would have said, "Okay, we'll go on that planet and leave." And like Nash Choka ends up agreeing with the before they leave. Nash Choka tells the rest of the New Republic that he'll help them hunt down the rest of the Vong that haven't surrendered and we're going to continue fighting. Much like how Coruscant wasn't going to be habitable for thousands of years, that gets dropped. But
Yikes.
there was a bit more of like a hint at what could have happened there that I think when you're looking at the story from like a top down view with point like just broader point breakdown of what the story is, I think it makes more sense than if you look at the specific execution. Because there's hints of the elements that would make more sense that they kind of didn't execute on very well.
Yep, but we'll talk about it when we
Yeah.
come to the unifying force.
Yeah, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves there, yeah.
Yep.
But all of that to say, with all the attempts that Vergier is making to undermine Nor, I think she actually thinks he's competent, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that Nomano is probably the most interesting character in the series, maybe one of.
It's definitely
But
up there.
I understand what he's trying to do all the time, which is, again, I'm dumb, okay, but like, just right for me, okay? Just don't make it too difficult like Virgil. Nomano, I know what he's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
I know what drives him. I know what kind of person he is. I actually know a person like that. He didn't like poison anyone, but like I expect it to happen any day now.
The last thing that I want to mention is at one point before they go out, or when they're on their mission, they're talking about using the dark side of the Force, and Anakin's response is, "Nobody's using the dark side on this mission," and he just leaves it at that. So that would have been an effective strategy if before the events of Episode 3, someone would just said, "Anakin, don't use the dark side of the Force."
Well, yeah, and then like 4 people use the dark side, so it clearly is showing that you don't do
Yeah,
it
that's
that way.
true. But mostly after Anakin died, and he didn't say it's the Dark Jedi.
But Anakin also told Jason, "Give Tahiri a kiss for me," and we know how that ended. It's not great.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this is just a little detail. They go back to Karita, and there's a restaurant. This might have been in the yeah, and this might have been in the prequel.
A
They go to
restaurant on Karita?
like there's a space station in the system, and the name is a joke about how the whole system's been destroyed.
Oh, I guess that was where that was.
Yeah, so
I
it's
don't know.
like I don't know if there's a 9/11 themed restaurant yet, but like that wasn't that long ago in universe. That's like a similar amount of time, and billions of people died, although I guess they were Imperials, so fuck
I
'em.
was going to say that Coruscant wasn't rebuilt in 5 days, but apparently it was. I wanted to bring up the droid thing.
Okay.
I know we talked about it in when we were discussing Vector Prime, but when we were reading and when I was reading Vector Prime, I felt like Star Wars will try to go into the whole "are droids human" thing,
Mhm.
and it kind of like a few times in these books they kind of try to go with these questions. They kind of try to understand if there's a soul, if there's a free will, etc., etc. But they are not doing enough there, and they are not going too deep. I don't know
Yeah.
if the idea is not to go to sci-fi with Star Wars, maybe something else. And the same actually goes to the whole what's the name of the doors?
YVH.
YVH, yeah. So in my opinion, the moment these droids appeared on the battlefield, like for the Wong, they probably should have been even more sacrilegious than the Jedi.
Yeah.
Like I
Hmm.
expected something like bad to happen to like Lando. And like he was so openly it ties back to this book. He was so openly like selling these droids.
Hmm.
I'm kind of surprised that his face wasn't like bio printed in the brain of every Wong in the
Yeah, they
galaxy.
just felt bad because they knew they were taking Dome Town from him in Coruscant anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Dome Town sounds like a blowjob parlor, but that's all right.
Ooh.
Yeah, I agree. I think we kind of got a replacement of the droid storyline with the bigger focus on the refugees. And I think there
Mhm.
probably was a way to do both of those
Yeah.
at the same time. And I think James Lucino's books did the best job of kind of tying that in together, where we got like the Salish egg facility where there was the droid who was definitely not Bollocks, who kind of led the revolution there. And we get a bit of that. We get like one hint of it in Star by Star, where it's like uh, the Vong saying, "Oh, you're getting those non-human, non-living things off the planet," when they're posing as the security people. But it's almost just played as a way to identify them as the Vong, rather than any kind of exploration of the idea being proposed there, because it just goes on to the next thing. And we don't even get like a no one cares that MTD dies, and he's a long-standing main character at this point.
Yeah, what the fuck was with that? Okay, I honestly I think the answer is pretty simple in that there's not a good it like if you want to address that, you've got to change everything about how droids are treated because if droids are fully sentient and deserving of rights, then you probably got to take Hano back and shoot him in the head for all the shit he's done to C-3PO. So
So I hope CTPO does it himself. But what's your opinion, guys? Do you feel like Star Wars droids have soul?
I don't think anyone has a
yeah,
soul, so I think
yeah,
they
don't
have as
get
much
us
of
with
a soul
Corey.
as the other people.
So
But
do they
like,
have more souls than a puppy? That's a question, I guess.
it's the thing I hate about the Force, where like Luke starts being okay with the genociding of the Yuzon Vong uh, because they don't have the Force soul, basically.
Hmm.
And I think like he should be. I don't like I don't like the idea of the Force because of that, because it does make that separation, and then you can just justify no, droids don't have whatever essence there, and therefore they're not worthy of the same rights, rather than looking at how they experience the world and say, does that justify it?
So
That
this
actually reminds me, there was kind of a weird creationist argument in this book that Jason gets into for a second, where it's like the Force was one, or he pointed to the fact that some animals will kill themselves if it means the next generation survives as proof that the Force exists. When like that's
yeah.
kind of a very similar argument you get from a creationist. Um, yeah,
Do
just
we want to
obviously you'd say
discuss?
God instead of the Force, but
Do we want to discuss Denning's religion now?
I don't know. I don't know if he is or not, but it's just. Also, I gotta say, I got so much anxiety when they're in this fucking crowded hangar, and it's the end of the world, and they leave the fucking baby with C-3PO.
Yeah.
What
Bad
are you
call.
doing?
Yes,
Fucking come on.
would you leave your baby with a creature that has no soul? I
A
don't know.
droid with, I mean, he's got arthritis and anxiety,
So,
and
yeah. Star Wars, for all their advanced tech, they have not invented the most basic of fucking baby carriers. No one
Yeah.
ever uses one, and so many kids get kidnapped because of it.
yeah.
I don't know why this isn't a thing that you're really on, Justin, as the
Yeah,
father
should.
here, but
Should.
like that stood out to me as like there's no way that none of these people have any kind of carrier. They're just always carrying around the baby in like the crook of their arm. It's like they
Honestly, I was that guy. I find carriers to be very inconvenient, but
But if you're not fleeing a planet.
yeah, that's true.
It's one thing
yet.
if you don't have to
Not
do
yet.
housework. Because they're the upper fucking echelon of society, they've never had to hold a baby while doing a dish in their life.
I found it funny too how Han and Leia totally right at the fact that their kids have been kidnapped a million times. Like if anyone can save the kidnapped kid, it's us. Our kids have trauma.
So Justin, knowing that Corey is dark side users, do you think that he will try to turn your kids to dark side?
My kids are already cooler than Corey, so I don't think he's gonna have very much influence over them.
Okay, that's Corey's now villain origin story.
Okay, so to get people to join the dark side, you have to be cooler than them so you can influence them. Which means that does that just mean being on the dark side is inherently cooler, or the people who go to the dark side have to be less cool?
You gotta be charismatic, and you gotta have like some reason people want to be around you. And Corey, I'm sorry, I'm joking. I'm joking. No,
So-
I wouldn't let my kids spend that much time with someone who likes Star Wars as much as Corey, and it's not me. So I wouldn't want him to start.
have cool Jedi's in the story like Chip Dillon. Is he cool?
Kip is
thinks
not
he's
cool.
cool,
Kip
but he's not.
thinks he's cool.
He's
He's
cool
not
in the
cool
kind
anymore.
of way that like a 30-year-old guy like is hitting on the same high schoolers year after year, and like
Yeah.
he thinks he's cool because he's like manipulating
same
emotionally
younger ones.
vulnerable people.
Yeah.
I'm the coolest kid at this high school. You're 35.
Oh, fellow kids.
Yeah.
Anything else from the book, or you guys want to give an arbitrary and reductive rating before we say goodnight?
So, can you guys give me a benchmark? I haven't watched the last few episodes of your podcast.
Mhm.
What did you guys give to? Let me try to remember.
Do you have the sheet open,
Yeah.
Corey?
So
Okay.
I'll give you our ratings from Vector Prime
Mhm.
through till now. So we'll give it. We're at the midpoint. I think it's a good time for a rundown.
Yeah.
4 is a B, right? I need to give my.
Is this 10? Is this book 10?
This is book 9.
Okay, so there's 10 left.
I think it might be. It might be 10 or later.
Do you
Anyways.
guys feel like this series are too long?
No,
No,
I think it's fine.
I feel like it kind of sags in the later parts. It's kind of like meanders.
I think that's fair. I mean, we'll get there.
Yeah. I think it breaks up enough stuff into different subplots.
Especially the Force Heretic, it kind of like meanders.
It's kind of a weird
Force Heretic
one
is
where it's right at the end. Yeah.
But let's see. So for that, so for Vector Prime, we both gave it a B. For Dark Tide Onslaught, Justin gave it an A. I gave it a B. For Dark Tide Ruin, we both gave it a C. For Agents of Chaos 1, we both gave it a C. For Agents of Chaos 2, we both gave it a
C is
B.
average, by the way.
Yeah.
A C is an average point.
For Jedi Eclipse, we both gave it a B. For Balance Point, Justin gave it a D. I gave it a C. For Edge of Victory Conquest, we both gave it an A. For Edge of Victory Rebirth, Justin gave it a C. I gave it a B.
So, just to kind of explain, we're not like an IGN where a 5 out of 10 or a C is awful. A C should be the average point.
Yeah.
A B is
If
good.
the game is running, it's 70, right? Immediately 70.
Yeah, exactly. An A is very good, and an S is like, your favorite. And then a D, or no, yeah, a D would be below average, and then an F is very bad.
So
Yeah.
since you guys didn't read my opinion on Vector Prime, I think like you don't care, but I feel like I feel like Vector Prime was B plus for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is B.
Okay. Corey?
It's fair. I struggle with this one a bit because it is important to me, like, just nostalgically, because it is one of my first Star Wars books, and like I went in not knowing who any of the characters were, so I didn't know which of the Jedi that were like clear red shirts looking back were actually red shirts. I was like, oh my god, they killed Ulaha Kor? That's amazing. But little did I know she didn't exist before. Basically, she got mentioned like once. But I think there's some elements that it does really well. There's some other elements that I think indicate problems that I'd have with Star Wars going forward, though, too, and with Troy Denning's writing going forward. But with the emotional impact of like how all the characters handle the grief with Anakin and all that, I think I'm gonna give it an A.
Ooh.
Yeah, for me it's tough because the moments I really like. But the writing takes it down for me to a B. I want to give it an A because there's parts I really like, but I find it's way too long. It's a little sloppy, so it's gonna be a B.
Well, I now learned that Ulaha Kor was a bit okay. That's okay.
Yeah, that's why she goes out to an epic solo.
Okay. Oh my.
You know what? I think I'm gonna go B. Maybe in our next re-ranking I'll raise it up or maybe even drop it down. But I think I'm letting nostalgia influence too much, which I didn't do with the other books. And I think there's enough weaknesses here that I don't think it's quite as good as some of the other A's we have looking at them.
Yeah, okay.
Do you guys think that Timothy Zahn and Troy Denning are the same person?
No.
No.
I think they've got
Okay.
some similar outlooks on some things.
Have you seen them in the same room?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Timothy Zahn's a much better writer than Troy Denning.
Okay, that's true.
Not that
but,
Troy
like,
Denning is bad.
yeah,
I really like.
Timothy Zahn is better. Yeah, that's true. But like in terms of the outlook on the life, I guess. Not
I think
using
there's
politics.
a lot of similarities there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I depends on the issue, but there's like some specifics that differ. But I think they'd broadly agree.
Timothy
on
Zahn's quite different about the Force. If you read the Thrawn duology, it's very different than what we get in.
Okay.
Yeah. Luke basically he shuts her down. He goes, "I'm shutting her down." He stops using the Force. He goes, "Mara." She's like, "What?" She goes, I'm shutting her down." He's like, "All right." Hey, Leia. Yeah? Shutting her down, bud. All right, Luke. Shutting her down.
Right. 2 more examples.
Hey, Kip. Kip's like, yeah. Kip's like, you want to come out and play Force football today? He goes, nope, shutting her down.
They call it in Star Wars, you know how we call it like throwing around the pigskin? In Star Wars, that's called throwing around the foreskin.
Yeah.
Oh,
Corin's like, hey, Luke, do you want to come join? Do you want to join this Starfighter squadron I made up? Only Force sensitives. Looks like nobody shutting her down. Sorry.
I wasn't sure who you'd go for number 6 there. I'm glad you went with Corin. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for
Talon Card.
Is he a noted Force user?
No, but is going to be, hey, Luke, I need your help deciphering this ancient Jedi thing that's only activated with the Force. Sorry, buddy, shut her down a few minutes ago.
Timothy Zahn can't tell Talon Card to do anything because Timothy Zahn is Talon Card.
Yeah,
that's his self-insert. I know Ilkin thinks it's Troy Denning, but
I kind of don't understand what the goal of Talon Card is, to be honest.
It's to be Timothy Zahn in universe, so know everything.
I understand that he didn't want to be a black guy, but like Lando plays the same role, more or less, right?
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
A lot of the smugglers end up being just like the same person and knowing way too much.
Is there too many smugglers in Star Wars universe?
Yeah.
Well, not after the
especially
NJO kills so many of them.
yeah, well, yeah, but like New Republic is what, like 30 years old at this point, like 20 something years old.
No, not yeah, 20.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah. So them keeping so many, and I know that it's becomes a bigger thing in Jason series later on. But like, do you expect like a real government to keep so many smugglers around and like dealing with them all the time, etc.? For me, it's a bit of a I guess they are good narrative tool to use when you need some kind of like covert action.
Everyone likes
But
a scrappy little outlaw.
yeah, but like for Republic, someone like what's her name? Bilindi Kalendi, I think her name is.
Yeah.
Someone like that
Name drop in
makes
this book.
yeah. She makes more sense in terms of like when you need to do something covert or something underhanded, something from Black Book, I guess.
Smugglers kind of have different roles. Like a lot of the time, the smugglers are just moving goods. Like that's when they're looking for smugglers at the beginning of the Thrawn trilogy. It's just for moving goods.
So what would you be smuggling if you were in Star Wars Galaxy?
Good vibes.
Okay, that's
Probably
because
Funko Pops. I can't see how they'd have those be legal. Because, like, we see the only version of that we see is in Dark Nest, and they take a very strong anti Funko Pop stance. Because, like, they were trying to smuggle all the little Killiks into the New Republic with them. It was like the little busts of the Millennium Falcon or Han or like Rebellion era heroes.
Yeah.
And I think that was a thinly veiled Funko Pop attack.
so I think I would rather do cocaine or start like Warhammer armies and buying one Funko Pop, because if I buy one, it will be like stacks upon stacks. I know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. So
My cousin did like thrifting, and then he ended up like
Hmm.
he set up his house as a store. So he would go to like Value Village and stuff, buy everything, and then take it to his house and set it up as a storefront there. So he had this cabinet that was just like miles and miles of Funko Pops that he didn't even want in the first place. He just wanted to resell. It's ridiculous.
it's like a
Beanie
addiction.
Babies.
I have been seen people with like hundreds of them. It's
Yeah.
what are you doing, man? And it's usually men, obviously.
All right, well, Funko Pops have been lambasted for the final time on Tapcaf transmissions until we get to Dark Nest.
So
But
okay, you can open.
Funko Pop. I just remembered.
Oh.
I think
That was free.
I think Corey's curtain is there to hide his Funko Pops. Actually, is that true?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay.
But all three of us will be joined by Charlie for some fun gaming action.
Really? Should we? Okay.
He's in the chat. He's in the chat. We'll be playing some Mario Kart. We'll be playing some maybe Fall Guys or Fortnite after that. That'll be on youtube.com/ECKSTOO as well as twitch.tv/Corey Loses. Next week, Eck and I will be back talking about Andor episodes 5 and 6 with our weird split up of the
No, it
of
was
the
6 and
arcs.
7.
Or sorry, yeah, 6 and 7. Then week after that is probably whatever the next NJO book is, which I forget. Dark Journey, probably. I think it's Dark Journey. But thank you, Ilkin, for joining us, coming back for Unifying Force as well. We're locking you in now. We'll figure out a better date for that. It's just a wall of Coke cans. That's my desk sometimes looks like that. But yeah, thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you for inviting.